What's up, Colts fans? Welcome to today's episode of Colts Latest. I'm your host, Scott Reiman, coming to you from rainy and cloudy San Rafael, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. Before we get started today, as always, have to give a big thanks to FanArch for having me on. If it wasn't for them, I would not be able to do this. I love doing this. If you guys like what you see, please do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to the Colts Latest channel so we can keep putting out this great Colts content for everyone. Couldn't do this without all of you, so thank you so much. Today we're going to continue our early draft preview with a look at players who the Colts might target with their third round pick, number 78 overall. But first, I need to address something that I read online this morning. ESPN had 11 of their NFL analysts give their Super Bowl and MVP predictions for the 2026 season. Now, while the Colts didn't make an appearance on either of those lists, there was a third part where each analyst made one big prediction about the offseason or next season. Analyst Matt Bowen's prediction? Quote, Trey Hendrickson will sign with the Colts. General Manager Chris Ballard makes a splash move to sign the top free agent on the market. Hendrickson, who led the NFL with 17.5 sacks in 2024, would immediately upgrade the Indianapolis pass rush. End quote. Wow, would he ever? I certainly didn't see that coming. Now, while this is a great idea in theory, and it would certainly bolster the front seven and make drafting a defensive end less of a priority, there are several things that would have to happen to make this a reality. The Colts do not have the cap space currently to sign Hendrickson and bring back crucial free agents like Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, and Nick Cross. In order to make room for Trey, multiple players currently on the roster would have to be released or have their contracts restructured. One of those players is Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman carries a massive $29 million cap hit in 2026, and the Colts could free up $24 million in cap space by releasing him. And they could also choose to sign him to an extension, which could save them up to $10 million off the cap in 2026, but I don't think that number is going to move the needle in getting Hendrickson here and retaining all the free agents you need to. Now, Pittman recently told reporters that he considers Indy his home and he wants to be here. If that's the case, maybe he'd be willing to sign an extension taking less money in order to be able to build up the team around him. Regardless, Pitt is the most obvious candidate for release should the Colts try and make a push for Trey Hendrickson. Other possible candidates for release could be Zaire Franklin, whose release would save the Colts almost $5.8 million. But are those savings really worth it enough to further decimate the Colts' weakest position, even if Zaire did have a down year in 2025? If the Colts bring him back, draft a linebacker or two, and then if those rookies pan out and Zaire doesn't return to his previous form, they could release him next offseason before the final year of his contract and save $9 million against the cap. If they tag Alex Pierce this year, they're going to need that money next offseason to sign him to a long-term deal. Then there's cornerback Jalen Jones, whose role diminished after the signings of Mooney Ward and the acquisition of Sauce Gardner. The Colts could save $3.6 million in cap space by releasing Jones, which could be an option unless Ward decides to retire, in which case they might need to keep Jones for depth. No matter what, it's going to be interesting to see how the Colts navigate the cap this offseason, who gets signed, who gets released, who gets an extension. My prediction is that the Colts focus on keeping the team from 2025 together, patching holes through small to mid free agent signings and the draft, and that Hendrickson won't be a main focus of theirs. But boy, would I be happy to be wrong about that. Okay, getting back into our draft preview, let's take a look at a few of the guys the Colts might target with the 78th overall pick. I mentioned Pitt linebacker Kyle Lewis yesterday as a guy who would be a great fit with the Colts, but all indications as of now are that his stock has skyrocketed into the late second, early third round, so unless the Colts move up in the third, I'm going to assume they won't be able to use number 78 on him. Now, one guy who I've seen connected to the Colts so far in the third round this offseason is Jake Golday. Golday is a 6'4", 240-pound linebacker from the University of Cincinnati. He started his college career as a defensive end at Central Arkansas, then transferred to Cincy in 2024 to play linebacker where he feels he's a more natural fit. He was first team All Big 12 in 2025 and has shown improvement every year in college, which is really what you want to see. He's great at filling the hole and finishing tackles with authority, something the Colts linebackers failed to do too often last year. He's average in pass coverage, which may deter the Colts, as middle of the field coverage is an area that they need to improve upon. He could definitely contribute on special teams day one, but it's uncertain whether he'd be ready to step into a starting linebacker role immediately. If the Colts release Zaire Franklin and or don't re-sign Jermaine Pratt, then they might be looking for someone who can start immediately. They might find that player in the second round, which would make a goal day selection more palatable as someone who could work his way into a starting role. NFL draft analyst Lance Zierlein gives Golday a prospect grade of 6.34, which fits into the category of will eventually be a plus starter. I think that's all you can really hope to expect out of a mid-third round pick on draft day. Plus, I've seen Golday projected in the first round, the second round, and the third round, so there are definitely scouts out there who value him higher than a mid-third round pick. I think if he's still there at number 78, he's definitely a player that the Colts need to consider. All right, another name that I've seen connected to the Colts so far is A.J. Halsey. Halsey's a 6-foot, 222-pound safety from LSU. Now, this would be a guy that the Colts could target if they decide to not re-sign Nick Cross. Where Nick Cross struggles in coverage is where Halsey thrives. His last 2 seasons, he combined for 8 interceptions and 11 passes defended, giving him 10 interceptions and 17 passes defended during his 4-year college career. He was first team All Big 12 for the Houston Cougars in 2024 before transferring to LSU, where he was not only first team All SEC, but a first team All American in 2025. The biggest stat that should impress the Colts is that opposing quarterbacks registered a QB rating of 59.6 when targeting Halsey, a vast improvement from the 110 QB rating that QBs had when targeting Nick Cross. Now, he doesn't stop the run like Nick Cross, and with the weak linebacking core the Colts have, they might not be able to lose a luxury like what Cross does against the run. If they do let Cross walk, however, and decide to shore up the linebacker room through free agency and with their second-round pick, then Halsey could be an option at number 78, assuming he's still on the board. That's also a question, as his pre-combine projection has him going in the late second or early third round. But again, as we mentioned with Kyle Lewis, if the Colts really decide they want this guy, they're going to have a couple of late compensatory draft picks where they could try to move up from number 78 to earlier in the third round to get their guy. All right, so yesterday I said that unless the Colts let Daniel Jones walk, I don't expect them to target a QB on day 2 of the draft, maybe in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. However, I've seen several QBs mentioned as possibilities for the Colts at number 78, and it's not a lock that Daniel Jones is going to come back. If they put the franchise tag on Alec Pierce, Daniel Jones is going to have to sign a new deal before free agency starts. Otherwise, it's open season, and there are plenty of teams out there who could use a quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers are one that I've been seeing a lot recently who might target Daniel Jones. And with the Colts' limited cap space, I'm not sure they can get into a bidding war with some of these teams. Maybe the Colts decide that they really like one of these QBs in the draft, and they use the money that they would have spent on Jones to sign Trey Hendrickson instead. We'll obviously know more as we get closer to the draft, and if Daniel Jones doesn't stay, we can revisit some of these QBs more in depth, but the 3 that I've seen mentioned as possibilities so far are Trinidad Chambliss as one. Trinidad Chambliss is a mobile 6'1", 200-pound quarterback from the University of Mississippi, and he's currently mired in an eligibility battle where he's trying to gain 1 more year of college eligibility before turning pro. Adding to this unknown is the fact that as of now, he was not one of the 15 quarterbacks invited to the draft combine, even with a projected third-round draft grade. One thing is for sure, though. Chambliss has talent. He threw for almost 4,000 yards with 22 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions in a competitive SEC last season, as well as running for 527 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now, last season was the only year Chambliss played against top college competition, as he spent his previous 4 seasons at Division II Ferris State. Although he did lead Ferris State to the Division II championship in 2024, putting up over 70 points in a playoff game and over 80 points in a regular season game. So he was clearly playing above his competition in Division II. Now, another name that I'm seeing linked to the Colts is Garrett Nussmeier. Nussmeier is a 6'1", 205-pound quarterback from LSU. He had a great senior year in 2024 and was projected to go pretty high on draft boards. He decided to return to LSU for his redshirt senior year, where his play deteriorated to the point that he was benched for the final 4 games of the season. Now, he also had an abdominal injury that led to that benching and as well to his subpar play by his previous standards. But there's still no doubt that he has talent, and he could be a great value in the 3rd round. He's 24 years old, so he'd be ready to step right in and compete with Riley Leonard for the starting position should the Colts move on from Daniel Jones. The final quarterback that I've seen linked to the Colts in the 3rd round so far is another QB who saw his draft stock take a hit last season, and that was 6'2", 210-pound Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik. Now, Klubnik was a 5-star recruit who was the number 1 QB in his class entering college. He was a 3-year starter for Clemson, but his play and the teams as a whole declined from 2024 to 2025. In 2024, Klubnik threw for 3,639 yards with 36 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, as well as running for 463 yards and 7 touchdowns. In 2025, all those numbers went down. He threw for 2,943 yards with 16 touchdowns and still 6 interceptions. And his running totals went from 463 yards and 7 touchdowns to 94 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, like Nussmeier, this guy has clear talent, and the drop down the draft board could work to the Colts' advantage if they decide they want a fresh start at quarterback. Like I said, I still fully expect the Colts to retain Daniel Jones, but it's nice to know that there are some potential solid QB options that could still be on the board at pick number 78 should the Colts decide to go that direction. This team is built to win now, though, and I don't think starting over with a new quarterback is the best thing to maximize not only the prime of Jonathan Taylor's career, but the final years of some of the best players on the defensive side of the ball. All right, that's going to do it for today. We'll continue with our draft preview tomorrow by looking at who the Colts might be considering in the 4th round with the 113th overall pick. Thank you again so much to FanArch. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Colts Latest channel, and let's go Colts!